Hi, everyone. Sorry to jump in a little bit late. My name is Kevin Dupont. I'm the head of University and Careers Counseling here at Deer International School in Dubai. Very excited to be at least here zooming in. Thanks, Katie and Diana, for taking the physical side of this presentation. Um, I am here today to talk about a bit of the high school counselor do nots, shall we say. And I guess, well, some of these things might be a little bit more obvious. Other things are just some things that we've heard from admissions officers. Um, and thanks, Katie, also for getting everything together. Should I just continue on? Katie, is that fine?
Yeah, that's no problem, Kevin. Go for it.
Okay, awesome. Let me just get my screen because my screen went dark on me here. All right. So when it comes to those do nots that we have here, I've lost Katie. I can't see Katie anymore. Can everyone still hear me?
Everyone here can see me, so don't worry about it.
Okay, we're good. But I just wasn't sure if there was something going on with the Zoom. High school counselor do not. So, thinking about planning events last minute, I know that everyone has such tight schedules, whether we're counselors, whether we are university representatives, and trying to put something together the week before can be a bit challenging. Um, I think it's always good, especially for when we work with students and work with parents, to make sure we communicate events well in advance if they want to attend. So trying to not plan things too last minute. Um, we understand that university reps also want to be um, mobile and don't have to carry too much weight, or maybe they can't afford to carry too much weight in their luggage. So we've been asked not to give too many gifts. I personally like just to give all of our small little gifts that can be just thrown into a carry-on, super easy when I'm able to, of course. Um, so try not to do that. Of course, we are asked not to forget when a school is visiting. Sometimes our facility staff forgets, but we cannot forget. So we always try to be present. And of course, coordinating those events. Um, Being in schools, we have to move around. Students want to branch out, so we try to have those events in bigger spaces whenever we can. Sometimes we get surprised by how many students attend, and we have to be a little bit more flexible. I know last year we had a new room that we've never used before because we opened a new set of the building, and we had 50 students come into a 30-person room, and only 30 had confirmed. So we're like, okay, how are we going to do this? And so we had to basically like get someone to open up a whole new part of the wall because one of those dividing walls that opens up, and it worked out in the end. But that's some of those do nots that our school counselors should try to avoid.
Thank you, Kevin. Do you mind flipping back to the slides so we can see those again? And we'll move on to the university rep dues. Next slide. Awesome. So those were our do's and don'ts for high school counselors. Next, we want to talk about university staff, what we can be doing better to improve that relationship. And so the first one is being available to counselors for general higher education questions. So many of us who work in recruitment, we may have done a degree in higher education or student affairs. I myself have a master's in student affairs administration. And so I don't want to just talk about the University of Arizona. Of course, that's where I work and I love my institution, but we want to be available to you all to offer support beyond just our own role as university representatives. So high school counselors, I encourage you to reach out to us and ask general questions about, education in the United States or in Canada. Let us know if your students are, we're just not really sure what community college really is or how that process works from going from community college to university. Feel free to ask us those questions beyond just what your institution can add to our high school and our fairs, and utilize our knowledge as a resource for you and your students beyond just our institutional representation. The second one is offering presentation content that is skill focused or aligns with the class curriculum. I think nowadays we call these master classes. That's kind of a common name, where we can invite a faculty member to present to students on their specific field. That is still a way for us to promote our institution, and it allows you all to give your students an insight into what that university is like, beyond just kind of me presenting the facts and about the University of Arizona specifically, right? A little bit of an echo, I think. We're able to talk about skill focused presentations. We can talk about 21st century skills that students will need to succeed in the job market. And we can talk about industry connections that the institution has that can help students succeed when they graduate. But we also can bring in faculty to talk about optical sciences and astronomy taking place on campus and different ways that they're contributing to the field. And so let us know specifically what your students are interested in so that we can coordinate properly and make sure that the presentation we're giving to your high school adds value to that student's education at your school. I'm going to pass it to Diana for number 3.
Okay, it was up on the screen before, but number 3 is for reps to organize group travel. So earlier I mentioned that some international, high school counselors in the region may work together to organize big fairs or like a week of events to welcome a number of universities around the world to visit their high school, but we can do the same on our side as well. And in fact, this time, it's my first time in India, and I actually joined a small group tour. There are 5 of us who are attending IC3 from Canada, and we are traveling around India for 3 weeks during this trip as well to do small group travel and to really talk about the benefits of studying Canada first and then our universities. So a lot of high school counselors have also told us that that's a really good idea because with one session, the students can learn about Canada from someone outside of their high school, but then also learn about admission and programs from 5 universities rather than just one. So it's a good use of the time. Should I do the first one? The fourth one would be arrange counselor events outside the school for us if we can. For us, obviously, we don't need to be best friends with the guidance counselors outside the classroom. It can be very professional, but if we're able to, go for coffee or it's a light drink after work, I think that's very valuable in building that relationship with the guidance counselors too, because then this way they might feel more comfortable reaching out to us through WhatsApp or whatever app we use, not just email, and really remembering us as their allies. And if they have any questions about Canada, for example, hopefully they'll think of me. And if I don't know the answer, or if I don't have a program at my university, I'm always happy to refer them to another colleague from another university that has that program. So think of us again as our allies.
We'll go to the next slide, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin to talk about the university don'ts.
All right, everyone. So with the university don'ts, I think as we all know, it's tricky to have, say, 20, 30, 40 students at every single university fair that we have. Sometimes they're arranged during lunch hours, sometimes they're arranged after school, or maybe during a study block where students do have to give some time academically. And so while I know I'm always running around trying to get more human bodies in rooms, which is a lot trickier than what it might sound like. Please try to be a little bit more flexible with the number of students we get. I often say that one person getting information can lead to 5 because sometimes one student will go, they'll talk to 4 of their friends, and suddenly 5 students have information. So if we could be a little more flexible with the number of students at every event, that would be great, especially as we get later on in the year and more exams kind of come up or application deadlines come up. We love to have representatives in schools. It's my favorite, or maybe second favorite part actually, of the job. I think the first part is definitely working with the students, but sometimes we have had guests just come in and show up and expect an hour of time. And I don't always have that hour at least prepared in my calendar. So it would be lovely to have a little bit of some notice, try not to just kind of appear magically and expect time. I'll do my best to make time, but the expectation is sometimes a little bit tricky. This next tab, I think, or this next bullet point, is tricky. And when we were writing this, we thought, how can we best explain this one? But rushing a visit, we totally get that you're here in Dubai or wherever you're going to visit, and you only have a certain number of hours in the day to see probably too many schools, especially over here. But please just be mindful of the timing. Let us know if you're running a little bit late, or perhaps maybe thinking about could you possibly add a couple extra 30 minutes just to make sure that there's no issues with traffic or no delays in getting to where you're going to next. Always helpful to have that. I know in Dubai, like in many parts of the world, there is just a little bit of traffic, especially in the morning with school drop off and after school with pickup and things like that. So maybe a little bit extra time. I was just speaking with a representative yesterday who said, I want to come at 8 a.m. on a Monday. And I said, well, at least you will be up and ready to go, but I'm not sure about the students. And students usually arrive a little bit late on Monday morning, so there's a bit more traffic. So I said, try to come at 7:30. I know it's early. I'll prepare the coffee. I'll have the tea ready to go, but you'll dodge the traffic and we won't get delayed at all. So that can be super helpful just to think about in planning. Always add that extra 30 minutes in there. Last thing as well is just we do get a lot of emails as counselors. We love to get updates and newsletters, but sometimes too many updates can be a little bit challenging. If I see a weekly update, it's a little bit harder for me to read every single week. But if I see like a maybe monthly update from a university that that's really popular here at the school, I'll definitely probably read it, or I'll share it on with the other individuals that I work with to have a look as well. So that's always quite helpful. Even personalized updates like, hey, Kevin, here's an update from, let's say, for Katie's sake, the University of Arizona. We have this program going on. Super helpful, especially if it's related to our certain context.
Awesome. Thank you, Kevin. So next we wanted to talk about some specific case studies to just dive into, situations that happen and what is the best way to approach it from maybe what the university wants to do compared to what the high school would prefer that we do. So the first one, this happened to me this summer. So university coordinated a high school counselor social during their upcoming trip. And a week before the event, the local government announced an extension to their holiday. And now all of a sudden that day where we have a social planned is a holiday and the high schools are closed and the counselors have the day off. And so I won't tell you what I did just yet, but I wanted to dive into asking Kevin first, what would you expect the university to do in a situation like this? They've coordinated an event, they're flying there from the US or Canada or wherever they're coming from. And now all of a sudden it's a local holiday and, counselors might be busy with their families. So Kevin, what would be your expectation from the institution?
From our side, I would say just being respectful that yes, we recognize this is now a holiday. We would still love to have the event if it's of course possible. We've had cases here in the UAE where suddenly Thursday is now a holiday, or now Sunday is no longer the weekend. So you never really know how things work sometimes. So just giving us the option and saying, hey, we know it's a holiday, you need the time off, we get that, but we're still going to be here. Just that way, maybe that expectation is not necessarily there in the same way. Just that sort of little bit of courtesy is super helpful for counselors. I know myself, maybe it's because I work a little bit too much. If it's a holiday and I plan to be there, unless I suddenly am traveling, I will be there because I made the commitment. But not everyone maybe is as work oriented as I am.
I appreciate that. I think that's a good example of how sometimes we assume that they're going to take the day off then, but if Kevin already planned to work and he already committed to an event, perhaps he's still willing to be there. And so in this specific case, I wanted to still reach those counselors, but also respect that, this was a cultural holiday. This is a local religious event. and that they may want to spend that time with their family. And so one of the first things I said is, how do I still reach them? Because I've already mailed all my materials. They're sitting at my hotel. I'm ready to go. And so I ended up making counselor packs and dropping them off at all of the schools, but not asking the counselors to come in on that day. And I felt like that was a good way to still respect their time, to respect the day off that they've been given from their government, but also get them the information that I had intended to do. And we decided we would return to the same city this fall and reschedule that event. So we called everyone, asked if they were coming. Most said no, we're going to take the day off, which totally understand, and ultimately decided to push that event and give them the information in a different way. But if, everyone had said, like Kevin, hey, we're still going to come, then we probably would have taken different action based on that. But we want to make sure that we're respecting each other, respecting the different events that are taking place in that country or city, and that we're able to be flexible in changing our plans based on things like that come up. So if you'll go back to the next slide, we'll do our next case study.
So the next case study is I've met a student with an average score, but for some reason they are very, very keen on going to a top 50 university in the world. The high school receives very few university visitors, and student has a narrow understanding of available options. So what do I do as a university rep? This one I will share. It's a personal experience that happened 2 years ago when I was recruiting for a US university. So we talk about rankings, but in this case, what am I supposed to do as a rep? I would say, first of all, I have to work with you, the counselor, to really understand the intentions of the student. Why is the student really, really obsessed with the top 50? Is it purely about rankings, or is there another reason or other reasons that we don't really know yet? So if it is about rankings, well, maybe there's another approach to it. For example, with rankings, typically it means that these universities are very intensive. They have a very high academic standard as well. If this student is not performing at that level, is that really a good choice for them even if they get admitted? Another one, in this case, the student didn't really know much about universities, but knew about numbers, and 50 sounded like a really good number to them. So in this case, I was not able to visit the school because of my travel plans, and it was just at a pretty remote place, but I was able to arrange for a virtual meeting with the counselor and the student, and then later on with the student parent as well, to give that one-on-one personal service and really talk to them, not just about US or my university, but to really help the guidance counselors work through those questions. Why top 50? What are you looking for? What are you interested in studying? What do you want to do in the future? Where do you want to go? For my university at that time, we were not top 50, but we were top 100. And it turns out that the student seemed to not understand too much about rankings. So first of all, I talked about how the rankings in the US worked. And the difference between top 75 to top 150 was actually not that big, but it's all about finding the right fit, the city, the location, the programs, and then also the service that the student may need. For example, he was pretty weak in writing. So we had a very strong writing center, and our students would be able to go there and make appointments on a monthly basis to meet with a tutor or writing assistant and go through the format of a university essay and citations and stuff. So he found that very, very attractive. Another point was that it turns out that top 50 tuition was not within their family budget. And so I was able to understand that part. And luckily, my university at that time was able to provide scholarship for the student if they met a certain academic threshold, and then also paired with an interview, I was able to offer a higher amount. So because I offered the right program, because I had scholarships to award, and because I helped this family understand more about where their child could go in the future at my top 100 university, they eventually applied and then accepted our offer and started studying at our university. So I think this was a success story for us, and an example to show that sometimes it's more about spending the time to dig deep into the questions, and you're not at this alone as counselors. University reps, like I said earlier, we are your allies. So we want to work together to help you find the best fit for your student and help the families understand realistically what kind of education that their student may be getting, because tuition for international students is not the most affordable one. So we want to make sure that it's a good investment and they get a high ROI, return investment, as well.
If you can go to the next slide, please. This one we kind of hinted at before with regards to do's and don'ts, and that is kind of rushing the visit. And so I'm going to turn this one over to Kevin. If a university is delayed in traffic, they're going to be late, and then they ask to leave early because they have another event scheduled. What's the best way for an institution to talk to you about this, and what factors should they take into consideration when deciding how to build their schedule? Kevin?
Thanks, Katie. Yes, like I mentioned before, things happen. We fully understand that. There are some sort of adjustments we can always make when it comes to events. For example, let's say if we have a small fair of 2 or 3 schools coming, if let's say we have a little bit of a delayed time, we could perhaps reduce the presentation time and just give some free Q&A, some open space where students can just ask their questions, or we could do just go right into the table or sort of side of things where students can just come up and speak to the schools they're interested in. If we have a one-to-one visit, Katie had a great example before of giving the counselor packs. We can always share information, then we could just try to have some students pop in. If it's a very large event where there's, let's say, 20 universities coming in a group, then we'll try to do as best we can, or of course, we can try to have some additional sort of staff there to help gather more information. In the meantime, I've pulled in a couple of teachers before and said, hey, I have a bunch of universities here, but we're a little bit delayed. Do you mind just helping us out with student movement or gathering some materials that we can pass out in the classroom since we're running a little bit behind? It's always a bit tricky. Students always like to linger. Sometimes maybe they're trying to get out of class, although that they never try to do that. We always try our best to be as flexible as we can. And then, of course, if let's say there is a delay where some students come in and say, "Oh, I couldn't meet with this university for the delay," we always try to reschedule with another virtual session, like Katie and Diana mentioned, and get something on the calendar. It's workable now, thanks to Zoom, just like today. And we always make it happen. Or if that can't happen, I've actually had one-to-one interviews on the students' behalf because they were in classes, and I asked their questions to the admissions officer, recorded it, and gave it to the student. They heard my voice even more than they already do, so sorry about that for them, but it worked out because at least they got the answers they really needed.
Thanks, Kevin. I think it's just a good example of how we respect one another, right? Is if we've coordinated a visit to your school, we want to make sure that we're giving you and your students time. But I also think it's a good reminder to university reps that we often want to just jam pack our schedule because we've flown so far to get there, and really leaving the allotted time when you're building that day, because traffic is unpredictable, right? Sometimes a student visit goes so well that you've got great engaging conversation, you don't want to leave it. And so just a good reminder to try to build in enough time in between to really make sure that you can properly respect every high school that you're visiting and the students that are interested. But doing your best to communicate and make sure that someone knows if you're going to be late, or if you're running behind because of traffic. I will say yesterday I ordered a few Ubers, and I never got anywhere on time according to what the Uber told me here in Hyderabad. So I know that's the case in a lot of places that we go, that you do your very best to say, okay, it looks like it's going to take me 30 minutes. It's never going to take 30 minutes. It's probably 45 minutes to an hour. So just always giving yourself enough time to really respect that relationship. We have one more case study before we go into questions. So if you can pop back over to the PowerPoint. All right, I'm going to turn it over for that one.
So this one is pretty recent because we do this around July, August. So a student is set to enroll in the upcoming term. It's getting close to the final transcript deadline, and the university still hasn't received the official document from the high school. The student's offer is in risk of being revoked because they're conditional offers, and we need to check for final conditions. What do we do? Before I answer what we do as a university, maybe I'll I'll direct it to Kevin to ask, what would you do as a counselor if you had a student that was in this situation?
Yes, well, I would love to say this never happens, but it has happened before. Um, I had a situation happen about a year ago where the student changed their mind after they graduated. They had another offer in a different country, different start, and they said, I need to do something else. I think it was financial as well. And I didn't know because they'd already graduated and off they went into the world, or so I thought. And I found out a month into our summer holiday that I have to send a transcript somewhere else, but I was off on summer holiday in Portugal. So in this case, sometimes we get blindsided as school counselors because students change their mind after they've graduated. And I think that's the beauty of international education and also the nightmare at the same time. So I myself just try to keep checking my email over those summer holidays or over the breaks just to make sure that no transcripts are lost in the meantime. And I have our admin team who is in the school just be sort of on my out of office. This is something that I need to do for next year as well, is make sure that they are fully just aware of the different documents that are needed and also aware of what the different terminologies are, because it does change in different countries. But I always make sure that my admin team is checking my email to make sure nothing else is in there as well. Which is great that they can do that. I know that's not always possible, but they're able to do that just to make sure nothing is missed along the way. And I have to give a shout out to my head of IB, who has also been super supportive and on her emails much as I am over summer holidays this past summer, with so many different things because of the IB results. She was super helpful as well. So just really getting those team members to help you out over the summer when people are off in different places is helpful from the school's perspective.
Great, thanks, Kevin. I would say, first of all, don't panic and don't let the students panic either. It's very important to get in touch with the university as soon as possible because even though we set deadlines and we're pretty keen and strict on our deadlines, we might be a bit flexible in some cases because we're understanding, especially for international students, different summer breaks and the complexity of getting their final grades in. We might have a little bit of wait time there for extra time for them to submit it. So get in touch with us first so we can put a note into our system and make sure that the offer is not revoked yet. And then we will work together to see how we can get the final transcript in. The transcript actually gets sent, but it got lost in the mail or it didn't arrive at my desk or in our office, we can go look for it as well. As long as there's some kind of written communication through, for example, email or if it's WhatsApp, to have that conversation going, I think it's a safe bet for the students. So it's not, devastating. So don't panic and communicate. And like I said, we're allies, so let's work together on these cases.
The only thing I was going to add to that is also reach out to the institution to understand their policies. So the University of Arizona, for example, we don't revoke their offer. They actually have till the end of their first semester to submit that official transcript. So while it may feel urgent to the student, we actually don't need it just yet. And so Kevin could enjoy his holiday in Portugal and come back and still the student could do well in their first semester. And so reach out to us and we are happy to share those policies and where it might be devastating to the student and where there might be some extra time that we can give them to get their documents in, because every school is going to be a little bit different. And so that's just another, I guess, addition to that case study. We know that we started a little late, but we do want to open up time for questions. So I apologize that we've only got 5 minutes left for them. But let us know what questions you have about our do's and don'ts, about our case studies, to Kevin, myself, or Diana. So I'll open the floor to you all. Yeah.
Is not sure. Thank you. Is not sure because sometimes even though we tell our students several times that, you can get in touch with us, sometimes once they leave school, then they feel that they can't, or, they forget that they were here to help, so what happens in those cases? Is it okay for them to write to you? And would you still, take that as a serious consideration? How can we help the student then?
Sorry, I would say that it's very important that students can also feel comfortable getting in touch with us. It doesn't always have to be the counselor, but in terms of transcript, every university's policy is different. For example, at Queens, for the final transcript, it has to come from the high school or from the testing agency, whether it's IBO or GCE, etc. So definitely write to us, but the final transcripts will have to come from there. But we can work together with the students to communicate and see how we can get the final transcripts to arrive at our campus.
Most of us have been facing while we were getting ready to come to IC3. We still had some students telling, that transcript and so on and so forth. The challenges that as counselors we face is very often that when we were to send the transcript, it is not accepted. Also, there are universities, they will say, no, please don't send. We will not accept it from your portal. You will have to use the XYZ portal. And very often, in spite of trying to do that, it doesn't happen. So since you're speaking from the university perspective, somewhere, if there can be some kind of acceptance to what, the university counselor at school is doing, and then maybe you can, hang on to getting the right one from whichever source. That kind of reduces the stress level with the student and, unnecessary, the dialogue that goes on and puts everything to hold, because the kind of schools we come from, we'll have the parents sitting in my office. I will have a mail coming from the director's office, the principal, and you are the only one, you've done something that something has gone wrong. So somewhere there, I felt if there was a little understanding, because I have faced it. Every time I've sent it through my mail, no, we don't accept it from you. We are very sorry. And there's a very generic mail coming. And so you really don't know what to do.
I appreciate that, because I think you're also speaking to how different we all operate. And so I can speak about the University of Arizona, but that doesn't really help you if your student is going to a different school or a different country, right? I will say, I know many of us will also accept like sealed official copies in person. And so there's also an opportunity to perhaps give your student that document in a sealed envelope and say, don't open it. Take it with you when you travel, because that can be a way for them to also solve that issue on their own without having you to figure out where you need to mail it or email it or fax it or whatnot in order to get it to the right place. Do you accept sealed official copies in person?
Yes, as long as they're sealed and not opened, no trace of it being opened, we can accept it.
Yeah.
But I would say, like, for all the university reps in this room, I think we'll take your input, your feedback into consideration as well. For a lot of us, well, I can speak on my behalf, like Queen's University, when we're doing recruitment, we really focus on the recruitment part. We have been, but then now we're learning that, there are some other complications or other difficulties, challenges that you counselors need help on, for example, the final transcript part. So for us, when we do planning and how we operate, maybe we'll have a little bit more communication and marketing plan to guide you on the final steps and not just the recruitment. So everything from recruitment to getting the students accepting into campus. I think for Queen's University, we're working more with our campus partners and other team members to get those communications and maybe have a cheat sheet for you so that it's easily understandable, like how to submit final transcripts or what the next steps are, what the checklist items are for the students in order to successfully come to our campus in September.
I'm so sorry to do this, but I do know that we're at time and we all have a keynote to get to. Thank you so much again for joining us this morning. We are both up here, so please come and introduce yourselves and say hi. We really appreciate your time today. Thank you. Thank you, Kevin. It's good to see you.
Thanks, Katie. Thanks, Diana. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy your day.